Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar with Fullscript and Dr. Gio Espinosa. My name is Sarah. I'm part of the marketing team here at Fullscript, and we are very excited to have Dr. Gio Espinosa here today to discuss herbal medicine to optimize testosterone in men. Before we get into the presentation, I want to go through just brief housekeeping. Just a reminder that this webinar will be sent to everyone who registered. So if you have to leave early or just want to watch it again, you will have access directly from your inbox. The recording will also live on Fullscript's website where you can access all past and upcoming webinars as well. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A section, and we will have some time at the end to address those with Dr. Espinosa. So once again, I would just like to thank Dr. Gio Espinosa for being here today. And with that being said, I'll let him take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate it. I appreciate Fullscript for giving me this opportunity to present on a topic that I am super passionate about, which is natural and lifestyle methods to optimizing testosterone levels in men. Just as an aside, I think that give you a bit of an overview even before we go to the next slide. Certainly, men as they age, they drop in testosterone, 1 to 3% every year, really after the age of 30. Whether that's a nature versus nurture element to it, nature. Well, that's just the way it is, regardless of your lifestyle. Or is it nurture? Is it a lifestyle? Is it environmental? Well, it could be it's probably more lifestyle related because many things happen after the age of 30. So as a result, you have men, I'm seeing now men younger than 30 with low testosterone. I've never seen this before. So there's a lot we can do from a completely naturopathic and just lifestyle perspective to help men optimize testosterone. Not only increasing testosterone, is optimizing testosterone levels, and I'll tell you what that means once we start. That said, and lastly, there's maybe some of you do TRT, which I think is completely fine. I think that, in my opinion, you want to exhaust natural and lifestyle approaches. Low levels in testosterone in men, almost at any age, is really a signal that something is wrong, some lifestyle component, whether it's sleep stress or dietary or metabolic syndrome or something. So I think you want to address that. That said, some men are down and out, and they cannot even, if you say you need to go exercise, they're not going to do it. So with a good injection of testosterone or topical or pellets or whatever, there's a place for that. But I think that natural and lifestyle methods need to be exhausted first. That's what I would suggest. That said, this is a disclosure. I am associated with a company called XY Wellness, which is a sister company, is a supplement company called Mr. Happy as well. And it is for male problems. I'm not going to talk about anything nutrition on this webinar. Okay, but nutrition is a very important element of optimizing testosterone. So if you either hover around your phone around that QR code or text 66866, and once you text that, you put Dr. Gio, doesn't have to be capital letters, it could be lowercase as well. You're going to get a 10-page little attachment that will give you the nutritional approaches. This is like a bullet point method with scientific references as it relates to optimizing testosterone nutritionally. I'm going to have this slide again towards the end in case you miss it now. Okay, it's going to take you to the page where you're going to put your email. That's going to subscribe you automatically to the Integrative and Andrology and Urology Institute, which I'm a part of, and that's independent from my faculty status at NYU. Of course, you You can unsubscribe at any time if it's something that doesn't serve you or give you value within time. Okay. All right. So about 2 years ago, I ordered this book, and it's like, if you have children at home, right, and you know that your kid is waiting for their toy, that's coming in an Amazon box, and they're waiting anxiously, and then you hear the doorbell, and the door, you open the door, the kid opens the door, oh, the box, and the enthusiasm of opening the box, and wow, the toy, that dopamine response, right, from that. This is how I felt when I got this book. This is the first book published in as it relates to testosterone in 1945, by someone who Paul de Grief, who is actually or was a microbiologist. I'm not sure if endocrinology was even a thing back in 1945, but certainly right around that time, there was a lot of interest in testosterone in men and what it can do for men. Certainly around that time was when a lot of bodybuilders began using it for anabolic purposes around 1945. So this book for me is like, I was like a little kid. I was like a little kid just going through this book. So that's just, this is the first book published on testosterone and male hormones. All right. So I want you to understand key concepts in testosterone production, because we're going to go over these key concepts and see how we can optimize testosterone production. What are those key concepts? Well, first, there needs to be healthy functioning of the HPG axis and very good feedback systems, right? So that needs to be intact, and that needs to be properly functioning. Then you need key enzymes that convert different components and byproducts of the testosterone, even from cholesterol to progesterone to pregnenolone to eventually to testosterone. So you need these key enzymes: hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, cytochrome P450. Those are the two main enzymes involved in the production of testosterone. Then, of course, once testosterone is made, other enzymes can contribute to other metabolites. So 5-alpha reductase converts testosterone to DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, or testosterone can be converted to estrogen, estradiol, through aromatase, the aromatase enzyme. So these are the key enzymes involved. Then you need to kind of manage the transporting proteins involved in testosterone. So there are a few. Sex hormone binding globulin is the main one that will focus here, just because SHBG clings to testosterone very tightly, and so it doesn't really let go of testosterone too well, actually. Albumin is another protein that attaches to testosterone, and of course, the reason for this is so that testosterone can flow in your bloodstream, right? Because testosterone is a steroid, so you want to make sure that you're able to transport testosterone from one place to the other. So SHBG helps with that. Albumin helps with that. The connection with albumin is weak. The connection and the link between testosterone and SHBG is tight. So we want to manage SHBG. Of course, so sometimes what I see is, oh, let's increase testosterone, right? Let's just increase testosterone levels and everything takes care of itself. Not necessarily. You need to have good functioning Leydig cells. These are the cells in the testes that produces testosterone. About 95% of the testosterone in men is produced in the Leydig cells of the testes. Of course, there's another about 5% or so that's produced in the adrenal glands, just like the testosterone that's produced in women through the adrenal glands. But about 95% of testosterone is produced in the Leydig cells of men. In addition to just having testosterone levels that are adequate, you need good functioning androgen receptors. Without the androgen receptors being healthy, functioning well, or enough of them, doesn't matter how high its testosterone is, you're just not going to function. This is when you see a guy in the office with testosterone of 800, but they're still showing low libido, low sex drive, etc. That is oftentimes a result of not enough androgen receptors or unhealthy androgen receptors, even though their testosterone levels is so high. Finally, free testosterone is actually and absolutely most essential for the health benefits of testosterone. What we're focused on is free testosterone. That's what we need. That's what men need to function. So we're going to discuss this. And by the way, I'm going to answer questions towards the end. So I'm going to skip over a few slides just for the interest of time, and so that I answer questions towards the end. I want to make sure that you leave here today knowing what to do with men, at least from an herbal perspective, and how to treat them properly with low T. All right, so first we're going to discuss the healthy functioning of the HPG axis, right? So the process starts in the hypothalamus, right, with the gonadotropin releasing hormone. It stimulates, well, there are two things that stimulates the hypothalamus, okay? Two things. Number one is stimulation by the central nervous system. Remember, the hypothalamus is the center where both the nervous system and the endocrine system, the hormonal system, connects. So the hypothalamus, it's stimulated by the central nervous system or by the feedback system that tells the body to either produce testosterone or to stop the production of testosterone, right? Then the hypothalamus releases gonadotropin releasing hormone to the pituitary, which stimulates the production of both luteinizing hormone, LH, and follicle stimulating hormone. We're going to focus on LH here. Follicle stimulating hormone helps with the production of semen in men, but LH is the molecule that stimulates the Leydig cells to produce testosterone. Okay, so then Leydig cells are stimulated by the luteinizing hormone. Then testosterone, the process of testosterone occurs in the Leydig cells. Okay, if there's either a lot of testosterone in the body, if there's a lot of dihydrotestosterone in the body, if there's a lot of estradiol in the body, it's going to shut down the process of making of stimulating the production of testosterone through the hypothalamus. Okay, so any of these three, that's why having very high levels of estradiol in the body counters the production of testosterone from the hypothalamus. Okay. Now, there's a lot of things that can inhibit the production through the HPG axis. Sorry, there's a typo there. It's not the HPG axis, it's the HPG axis. All right, so having oxidative stress can stop full production of testosterone through the whole HPG axis, right? Even from the hypothalamus. Okay, so oxidative stress can have an effect on the adrenal glands, which then can produce cortisol. Too much cortisol stops the production or inhibits the production of luteinizing hormone, which then you don't have enough, or you don't have LH to produce to stimulate the Leydig cells, right? Prolactin, right? So high levels of prolactin in men stops the production of testosterone through the GnRH system, right? Estradiol, pro-inflammatory cytokines stops the production right at the Leydig cells. Leptin, this is why men who are overweight or obese, they have metabolic syndrome oftentimes, but they also produce a lot of leptin, which inhibits the production of testosterone, right? So there's many pathways here that we need to address. So, we talked about cortisol. There is a crosstalk between the HPG axis and the HPA axis. There's crosstalk there, Okay, so that what does that mean? When there's high levels of cortisol due to stress, whether it's emotional stress or just physiological stress, even for example, we're not going to talk a lot about exercise as it relates to testosterone production here, but exercise is, depending on the exercise, a certain type can actually promote testosterone optimization or be detrimental. So endurance type of activities increases cortisol levels. Let's say marathons, 3, 4 hour, 5 hour marathons, big stressor to the body, and that stops the production of testosterone by inhibiting luteinizing hormone, right? So we want optimal testosterone and cortisol production or ratios here. All right. Other key. So the next key concept that we're going to talk about is the enzymes. I'm not going to talk a lot about enzymes here because in terms of the HSD enzyme and cytochrome 450 enzyme, unless there's genetic problems where some of these enzymes are just not produced, there's really at least no problem that I've seen clinically or that I've learned about from lifestyle that inhibits the production of these enzymes as long as there's enough protein to create and make these enzymes. All right, so that's why protein is an important factor here, and I talk a little bit about protein in the that little booklet that you are getting in the nutrition component of testosterone increase. But the other enzymes that we're going to briefly talk about is 5-alpha reductase. So as you know, testosterone converts from, or 5-alpha reductase converts testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. DHT is way more stimulatory to the androgen receptors. It connects to it more strongly. It sticks to it, is about 10 times more powerful than testosterone in terms of its linkage to these androgen receptors. If there's a lot of production of DHT, that will stop the production of testosterone as well. And the other one is aromatase, which different story for a different day, but it's been a while since I've given any patient an aromatase inhibitor. Why? Because it turns out that estradiol is an important hormone for men. Again, different story for a different day, but we don't want to drop the have estrogen levels that are too low. For example, estrogen is not only testosterone involved in libido and sexual desire, but it is also in men estradiol. So it's for every, let's say, 100 patients that I've seen with whether they're on TRT or on natural approaches to increasing testosterone, for every 100, maybe there's been one that I've thought that they need an aromatase inhibitor to stop the conversion. All right, so aromatase inhibitors is not something that I typically use because I just don't think it's necessary unless the ratios are too off between testosterone and estrogen. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the management of transporting proteins, which is mainly SHBG. This looks a little clunky here. All right. So SHBG is produced in the liver, and it regulates its bioavailability with the androgens. So androgens will stimulate the production of SHBG in the liver and estrogen as well. So hypothyroidism also has an effect on SHBG. So this is why looking at thyroid function is essential for testosterone optimization. Obese men have and which typically have higher insulin concentrations will have an effect on SHBG. SHBG is associated with a decrease in bone mineralization. So higher SHBG levels, not only does it cling to free testosterone a little bit more. And so there's not enough free testosterone, but it's also linked to more fractures in men, bone fractures in men. And liver fat, not necessarily visceral fat, which visceral fat is a problem in men, of course, but it's more associated with lower SHBG levels. Other things that affect SHBG includes just aging, again, hypothyroidism, this increases it. Liver disease can increase it because there's no negative feedback system that works for the liver. HIV and anorexia, which is not a eating disorder it's that common in men. Anorexia, of course, is more common in women. What decreases SHBG? Well, things like obesity, insulin resistance, growth hormone excess, different androgens. So again, if there's a lot of testosterone, or if there's a too low of testosterone, that is, there's an decrease in concentrations of SHBG. Kidney problems, progesterone and progestins. As a quick side note, progesterone actually can weakly attach to androgen receptors. So, and it can block the attachment of testosterone to androgen receptors. So this is why it's important to look at progesterone, because if it's too high, I know there are some men who take progesterone to help them with urinary problems. I don't think that's a good approach. Because you're blocking the connection between the testosterone and the androgen receptor. And just, yes, if there's a big prostate, which is the ultimate goal in this situation, what you would want to use progesterone, that can possibly help with urinary problems. But it turns out that you can have a big prostate and not have urinary problems. You have a small prostate and have urinary problems. So it's not always associated, or at least urinary problems is not always associated with a big prostate. All right, next key concepts that we're going to talk about is the functioning of healthy Leydig cells. So essentially, cholesterol, 95% of cholesterol of testosterone is produced in the Leydig cells of the testes. That is, so the Leydig cells use cholesterol. Key point here, right? Cholesterol. I am concerned with cholesterol levels that are too low in men. How can it be too low? Isn't that good for cardiovascular disease? Maybe that's a different conversation. But when cholesterol levels are too low, that can bring down the production of testosterone, so then testosterone levels become low as well. We don't want to bring cholesterol levels too low. It's essential for all steroid hormones, including estradiol, but also testosterone. So through a series of pathways, cholesterol gets into the Leydig cells, and then eventually in the mitochondria of the Leydig cells is where production steroid genesis occurs, in the mitochondria of the Leydig cells. So you need healthy Leydig cells. You need enough Leydig cells within time. The Leydig cells also function not as well. Let's just say they become unhealthy. So you need healthier Leydig cells that function well. We're going to skip. I'm a history buff. You're going to have to forgive me. So this is why we already spoke about the first book on testosterone production. So we're going to skip but this is interesting that the Leydig cells were found in 1850, of course, by a man named Franz von Leydig. And that eventually in 1969, where it was demonstrated that cholesterol is converted to testosterone in the Leydig cells. But we're also going to skip the different phases in a male's life where there's testosterone production, just for the sake of time. And I want to make sure that I answer questions. So we're going to focus on adult males here. So you can, if you need a copy of these slides, maybe we can get it through Fullscript or through the Institute for the Integrative or Andrology and Urological Institute. Okay, adult males. Here's what happens with Leydig cells in adult males. It decreases in number with time. They rarely, it's not that these Leydig cells are produced, then they die off. They don't die off, but they just decrease in number within time. And sometimes they just don't respond to LH or FSH, right? So the Leydig cells are just become unhealthy. And if there's a lot of aromatase activity around the Leydig cells, so sometimes it produces a lot of estrogen, which then reduces the production of testosterone. And this all happens within these cells of the testes. Sorry for the formatting here. This is not how I saw it, but we'll run with it. Okay, what's the next element of optimizing testosterone production? Androgen receptors. You need healthy androgen receptors. Where are these androgen receptors? They're found throughout the whole body, really, in men. Prostate, found in the adrenal gland, skeletal muscles, of course, liver, central nervous system, parts of the brain, and the amygdala of the brain, found throughout the whole body. So it does have an effect on how we feel, how men feel, attitude, certainly sexual desire, how confident. So having enough androgen receptors that are healthy and functioning well is actually a key element that I think is oftentimes overlooked. The main function of these androgen receptors is for that DNA binding that regulates the gene expression to then make do the male thing that testosterone does, whether it's deepening the voice or muscle production, having sexual desire, erectile function. So you need these androgen receptors to work well. The androgen receptors are activated by testosterone, DHT, and other androgenic hormones, sometimes a little DHEA. DHT has a stronger bind than testosterone, as we spoke before. Visceral fat has higher concentrations of androgen receptors. So subcutaneous adipose tissue, so that's all that fat right underneath your skin, has higher estrogen receptors and progesterone receptors, and very few androgen receptors. So more fat in the body, more male fat, particularly subcutaneous fat. There's a lot of estrogen receptors there. So then there's a lot of there's a lot of aromatase activity there. Again, this is the reason why high fat, I'm not a big fan of BMI, but men that have a lot of fat, I've seen men that look slim. You will never know that they're slim fat, right? They're slim, they look with clothes, they have clothes, they look nice. You measure them and their fat content is really high, upwards of 30, 35, 40%, right? So you want to try to get body fat percentage in men is an important component, because they could be converting through the aromatase activity a lot of testosterone to estrogen. And then estrogen downregulates androgen receptor expression in subcutaneous fat. Okay, lastly, free testosterone. What you really are looking for is optimal free testosterone. It's almost irrelevant. This is a potentially controversial statement that I'm about to make, because the notion is that if we just increase total testosterone by any means necessary, whether we're talking about external TRT, injections, potions, pellets, that will automatically increase free testosterone. And if you have low total, that you have free total. This is not true, okay? I know of a person who has, we're going to go over the clinical aspects of guidelines and things of what to do with patients, but you may know testosterone, the range is long and large. So the range in labs is between 300 and 1,000, let's just say. I've seen people with low total that's less than 300, 248. but with good levels of free testosterone. Asymptomatic, no problems, no sexual dysfunction, no problems of any kind. And I've seen guys with testosterone of 800, but with low free. Okay. So free testosterone is what you're really looking for. Testosterone in the body is bound to SHBG, but also albumin and corticosteroid binding globulin also bind to testosterone. Again, the clinginess of testosterone is stronger with SHBG than it is with albumin and or CBG. Let's go to the next slide. Albumin and CBG bound testosterone is weakly bound, so it disassociates very easily. The term bioavailable testosterone refers to, and you see this in labs, right? Bioavailable testosterone refers to the sum of the albumin and CBG bound to the testosterone. That's the bioavailable. Here's the key thing that you want to know. What you're really looking for is for your patient to have 2% to 2.5% free testosterone. That is the goal. So there are times where testosterone is 700, but free percentage is, I don't know, 1%. There's a lot of, and then of course, SHBG is very high. There's times where testosterone is 300, even 248, 250, but free testosterone is 2%, 2.1, 2.5 with no symptoms, asymptomatic, and incidental finding. In my practice, I pretty much, everybody who comes to my practice, we're going to do a full hormonal panel, right? So this is what I've seen. So let's summarize really quickly. A lot of things need to happen for men to feel the benefits of testosterone. It's not just a matter of total testosterone being high, it's also a matter of functioning androgen receptors, healthy Leydig cells, not SHBG that's not too high, so that there's enough free testosterone to work. All these things are very important, and you remember all the pathways that can inhibit the proper production of testosterone. Oxidative stress, excess cortisol, too much leptin, a variety of things, inflammatory biomarkers. They can all inhibit the production of testosterone. All right, here's some quick guidelines. So you want to get testosterone levels in the morning. Around 8 o'clock is the peak where testosterone production, testosterone is released at night, roughly between, depends. REM sleep is important, that as an aside, to get enough release of testosterone, but roughly between 5 and 8 a.m. in the morning. So if you can have your patient get their blood work around 8 a.m., that would be advisable. You want to get a panel of total testosterone, free testosterone. Free percentage is a calculation online that you can get. So if you put online free testosterone calculator on Google, then it's going to give you that calculation, or a calculator to determine that. Do not screen for testosterone levels when a man is ill, fighting a cold, with COVID, flu, just unwell, because the body's ability, their testosterone levels, that's a stressor to the body, and the body reduces the amount of testosterone that it produces when a man is fighting an illness. So you don't want to get blood draw when they are unwell, when a man is unwell. This is interesting just because, so we're in most young men, and you know what's young. There's right. There's biological aging, and there is a calendar, what I call calendar aging. Right. So in general, they refer to men around 40 or above 50 as older men. I beg to differ because, right, I am in that category. But anyway, in younger men, you can see a difference where they testosterone continuously increases or is released throughout the night till about 8 a.m. in the morning. In older men, there's not a lot of difference in the release of testosterone. It kind of stays pretty stable throughout the day. Why? Nature or nurture? Is it lifestyle? I mean, we do know that men have trouble sleeping as they get older. They are less in REM time and so forth. So, but this is just uh, a note that in older men, again, I think older men really describes men that are unhealthy, and they are biologically not only they're biologically older as opposed to just age. All right, signs and symptoms of androgen deficiency. Well, they'll definitely present with low libido and low sexual activity. They'll talk about decrease in spontaneous erections. And again, a lot of the younger I call them kids, I mean, younger, below 50, below 30, they're having these same exact symptoms, which is insane. This is a new phenomenon of 2020, 2020 and above of our century. Younger kids, younger than 30, 25 years old with these symptoms. Gynecomastia, poor ability to heal from injuries, fractures, hot sweats, and hot flashes, just like women have, which you see in men on androgen deprivation therapy and prostate cancer. Low energy, low performance, memory problems, sleep disturbances, muscle strength decline, all sorts of things. So when a patient presents with at least 3 or 4 of these symptoms, first of all, I think that it behooves you to at least have a baseline of testosterone, free testosterone, SHBG, and DHT and estradiol in men. Have a baseline. And then if they present with any of these symptoms, likely they have, not that their total is low. Again, I'm emphasizing this because I see patients come to me. So look, I don't have a testosterone problem and I'm having all these symptoms. And I'm thinking, I don't even have to look at blood work. You do have a testosterone problem. Well, total testosterone is 450. My doctor said I don't have a problem. Well, you do have a problem. There is something off, whether it is that there's not enough free testosterone in this patient, whether it is that the androgen receptors are not functioning well, there's something off. Leydig cells, there's something off. So in general, there's an increased mortality in men with low testosterone in general. Okay. And this is if they have low testosterone along with sexual symptoms, or if they have just low testosterone. They looked at total testosterone here. I urge you to really focus on free testosterone until proven otherwise. I'm always willing and ready to be wrong. My interest is in getting it right, and not just to be right, right? And epidemiological studies have shown there's higher mortality for cardiovascular disease and all sorts of just all-cause mortality in men with low testosterone. So optimizing testosterone is an important thing. Now, let's get to the meat of things. Botanicals and herbal medicine for boosting testosterone. You do know there are a lot of products in the market, right? These commercials and Nugenics, and you go to any supplement store, and it is a crowded market, and they're all boasting to be the best in production. So is it possible that there's actually testosterone in some of these, like real synthetic testosterone, and it's not just herbal? Because we do know that the sexual supplements sold over the counter sometimes that are not carefully looked at by any agency does have uh, PD5 inhibitors like Viagra, Cialis, and or Levitra. So they're not natural per se. They do have synthetic compounds in it. So can it be that some of these testosterone supplements also have um, testosterone, synthetic testosterone in them? I don't know. That has not been proven. Unlikely. Plus, testosterone in taken orally, it's broken down in the liver too easily. Now, however, we're not going to talk about this either yet, but there is a new drug out that is an oral medication for testosterone that actually bypasses the liver. FYI, you're going to hear about that. So make sure you join the Institute for Andrology and Urological Integrative Andrology and Urology Institute, because we're going to talk about that in the future. All right, here we go. Eurydica dioica root stinging nettles. Here's the deal. It seems to be a decent SHBG inhibitor. So it lowers SHBG, and by lowering SHBG, you free up testosterone. Most of the studies have been done in animals. I can tell you that in my clinical experience, it seems to work well. I don't do single herbs or nutrients. I know that there's some influencers and podcasters that talk about using single herbs. I'm a naturopathic doctor that's learned to use herbs and botanicals as herbal medicine. And in herbal medicine, we've always used a combination of herbs, right? That work synergistically with each other. So I've never used it alone. There is no research on Eurydica dioica root and its benefits for testosterone in humans, but it seems to work in reducing SHBG. So I do use it. But remember, is the root. So I see some of these testosterone supplements out there that have Eurydica dioica leaves, not the root. The leaves don't have the hormonal beneficial effects like the root. So you got to make sure that it's the root. Maca. Does maca have an effect on testosterone? I don't know. It seems it might have an effect on testosterone in women. And of course, women can benefit from testosterone as well, just like men can benefit from estrogen and estradiol in the body. But it seems to have helped men with erectile dysfunction, at least mild erectile dysfunction, at very high dosages. So maca, you need about 2,400 to 3,000 milligrams a day of maca for there to be a benefit from a sexual perspective. Ashwagandha. So here's a takeaway for you. As you may know, ashwagandha is a adaptogen botanical. It's an adaptogen. I think adaptogens are essential for optimal testosterone production. Essential. Why? Because they help the body with stress. And they help the body adapt, right? Adaptogen to stress. So ashwagandha, if you like rhodiola, cordyceps, we're going to talk about that later. Siberian ginseng, great adaptogens. I prefer both ashwagandha. I think rhodiola is good too, but it's been looked at and not so much for testosterone optimization. Ashwagandha, however, it has. The bottom line is that ashwagandha in studies have shown to increase DHEAS, right, by 18% and by about 15% increase testosterone levels. How? Why? Good question. I think that it's related to balancing out the cortisol, the testosterone to cortisol ratio. So it might lower cortisol, and by lowering cortisol, you can increase testosterone. That's what seems to be the case. But it's been looked at from a hormonal perspective in men. It seems to help men with sexual function, and it's a wonderful adaptogen. So this is my main go-to. Plus, it has all these other benefits: anxiolytic, immunomodulatory, and antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. Great botanical. One of my favorites. Fenugreek. Fenugreek has been looked at very carefully in randomized trials. So this meta-analysis showed that 500 milligrams increases total testosterone, decreases DHT, and probably inhibits aromatase and 5-alpha reductase activity. So what does it? So by doing so, it increases total testosterone and it stops the negative feedback system from producing or from stopping the production of testosterone. It also seems to increase free testosterone, which is ultimately what we're trying to accomplish. Lastly, fenugreek may help with erectile function as well, probably because it's helping with optimal testosterone production. So fenugreek, I think it's a good deal. It's a good botanical for testosterone. Tongkat Ali, Eurocomia longifolia, Malaysian ginseng, right? Systemic review not that long ago. And meta-analysis looking at its benefits. Bottom line, helps with osteoporosis, increases testosterone levels, it lowers potentially estrogen levels, improves sperm production in men. Well, as best as I know, men are the only ones who produce semen, right, and sperm. Higher release of FSH and LH. So there seems to have the mechanism of action seems to be in the hypothalamic pituitary area as well. And also improves erections in men. So there's a lot of benefit here in terms of research, where I can probably hold my hat and say, look, there's good research, and I live in an academic world, and I think clinical experience is really important still. But certainly, you want good quality research as it relates to botanicals. I think Tongkat Ali has good research behind it, where we can say, look, this may work. So I think it's an important botanical for testosterone optimization. Tribulus. Look, I'll tell you this about tribulus, and I'm saying this because it's in every supplement. It's not my personal go-to. It does have saponins in it, and saponins seems to it's an ingredient that seems to help with optimal testosterone production. It's only shown to work when it's combined with other formulas, not by itself. And one study in 2005 didn't seem to, and this is the Journal of Ethnopharmacology, and it didn't seem to show any benefit in testosterone. So I have not used tribulus in a long time for testosterone production. So that's that. Maybe I know that some people would say, well, it's the formula, or the tincture works better than the pills, and maybe all of that is possible. Fedosia agrestis. I'm only mentioning this because a lot of people are talking about it on the internet, podcasters, influencers. Guys, ladies, I don't see it. I haven't seen there is no human clinical trials on Fedosia. Everybody's talking about this is like the best thing, second to, I don't know, TRT. I haven't seen it. Yes, there is animal studies, but for there to be a craze about Fedosia agrestis without good human clinical trials, I could see that if there would be a craze for Eurocomia longifolia or Tongkat Ali. There actually is decent research on that herb, not on Fedosia. So I'm not exactly sure what the craze is about. I have not tried it clinically, and hey, maybe they do a clinical trial, a human clinical trial, it would work, but I haven't seen it. Cordyceps. So cordyceps seem to work in the Leydig cells. So it seems to make Leydig cells, let's just say, healthier by promoting different pathways that helps with the production of testosterone. So cordyceps is an adaptogenic herb. Again, this is animal studies, so take that for what it's worth. But I do think there's a benefit for cordyceps in the production of testosterone. And we're going to come close to an end here so I can answer some questions. All right, what's the summary? Tomcat Elite seems to work in any range of dosage between 200 and 600 milligrams. I do use formulas. I don't use single herbs. I don't think it's necessary. I think you want to use herbs like herbs have been used for thousands of years. A combination of herbs because that has a better effect. In Chinese medicine, it's always like Ayurveda. Even the history of botanical medicine in the U.S., herbs have always been used in conjunction with other herbs, never as a single botanical. So that's how I use it. That said, the range in all of these are dependent if you use other botanicals or not. So 200 to 600 milligrams a day. Eurytica dioica root, okay, root, not leaf, around 5. Now I'll tell you this: stinging nettle, Eurytica dioica, or nettle root, also goes by nettle root. I do recommend it separately if I see that SHBG is high, and I do recommend a single botanical of nettle root at about 500 milligrams twice a day. I don't recommend it in a formula because I think if the goal is to reduce SHBG, then we need a higher dosage. Ashwagandha, 300 to 500 milligrams once or twice a day. Fenugreek, 500 to 600 milligrams. These are the benefits. Badoja, have no idea. I really don't. But if you were to try it, my understanding on the research that I read as a single ingredient is about 400 to 1,000 milligrams a day. Tribulus, I really don't know how to use tribulus in an effective manner because I just haven't used it enough, or it's been a while. So I don't, and I just don't think it's necessary. Cordyceps I do use in about 300 to 500 milligrams a day. That's my clinical experience, by the way, because there is no human research on cordyceps. And maca requires about 3,000 milligrams a day if there's sexual dysfunction. I don't know if it has a benefit on testosterone, though. By the way, if men are more sexually active, that act alone increases testosterone as well. So just the act of being sexually active and having sex increases testosterone. So maybe there's an indirect benefit there. Here is the nutritional guide as well. Okay, here's the nutritional guide. Go ahead and hover over the QR code or just text that number, put in Dr. Gio, and you're going to get the nutritional approach. And I do think that I'm human, so that means I'm biased. And in my clinical experience and in my view, lifestyle and natural methods can optimally increase testosterone with the use of nutrition, certain botanicals, the right way to exercise, and good sleep habits and sleep function. Okay, that is the key element to increasing testosterone and optimizing. It's not only increasing testosterone, it's optimizing testosterone in men. And now I am ready to answer questions. Sarah, if you're on, I can leave this slide there and answer questions or whatever you think we should do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Espinosa. We did get a few questions. Before we dive into them, I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be sharing a recording of the presentation, and we had quite a few people ask if we could provide the slides as well, so we can do that. We'll have the recording and the slides for everybody after the webinar. But the first question that we had is, what is an optimal level for SHBG?
It's always relative to total testosterone. It's really relative to that. What I would say is that I'm hesitating here because it's almost like I just don't think there's. I used to say optimal levels of testosterone is 600 to 800 total testosterone. Period. End of story. And then with experience, I said, well, I don't know that's true because we want optimal free. So it really depends on how much of the free testosterone is available. So roughly SHBG, it would be anywhere between 25 and 40 nanograms per milliliter. Again, very dependent on um, on the total testosterone.
Great, thank you. And the next
Yep.
one is, since elevated growth hormone increases SHBG, would patients taking sermolin experience a similar effect?
That I don't know. Yes. So growth hormone increases SHBG. If you're taking, I think what you're referring to is the peptides, if I'm not mistaken. And if that increases GH, that will likely increase SHBG as well. But that's just, I haven't seen too many patients actually taking sermolin or any peptides. Actually, I started to dabble in and recommend them. So I would think it would, but that's just a guess.
Okay. And the next question is, what is considered too low cholesterol levels?
Great question. Well, I've seen cholesterol levels below 100, and I think that's very low, right? So, um, first of all, I don't want to digress too much. I don't necessarily recommend lowering cholesterol levels in most men, that almost regardless of what that number looks like. From a cardiovascular perspective, and my specialty is more in andrology and urology, not so much cardiology. But as a result of the type of practice that I have, I've done good research in cardiovascular disease and spoken to experts. So my understanding is, you want to look at, for cardiovascular risk, you want to look at things like APOB and things like that, right? CRP, APOB, more so than just total testosterone. So in general, I don't lower total testosterone. So I've had testosterone even 300. If APOB looks good and we do a calcium score and it's fine, and I just don't lower total testosterone. I think it's case by case. If there is familial hypercholesterolemia, that's a different story. But I think it's case by case. But all in all, I just don't lower it. So I don't know what's the lowest. I've seen very low because they're on high statins, and they've taken, their levels are below 100. So I think that's low. I think 150 is low. Again, I just don't think, I haven't seen a case, all things considered, where I've lowered cholesterol. Sometimes they come in on statins already, and I leave them with statins. But so if it's, I would say the cutoff, and this is my clinical experience, would probably be around 150. I would say.
Thank you. The next question is, would you say to not use small amounts of oral progesterone, 5 milligrams, to help with insomnia?
The poison is in the dose, right? So such a small amount. Look, if there's always in medicine, and when we recommend lifestyle approaches, it's all about trade-offs, right? It's always about trade-offs. Diet, always about trade-offs. So if 5 milligrams of progesterone is helping a man to sleep better, and you can test their hormonal panel, and if that's fine, that shouldn't be a problem. And if they're asymptomatic, meaning they don't have low libido, sex drive, and things like that, I would think that's fine, right? And every patient is different. I would think that's fine, particularly, again, if it's helping with insomnia. There's other methods of helping people with insomnia. Maybe you want to try that too. So, but all in all, that's a low enough amount that I wouldn't be too concerned.
Okay. And we are coming close to time, so we will do one more, and then I will make sure that we get the slides and recording out to everybody.
Yeah.
The last question here is there a supplement that has a variety of these components to not have to use 4 to 5 supplements?
That's a great question. And I use, well, let me just say this. Fullscript is going to carry shortly the Mr. Happy line of things. And I'm in the mix. I'm actually doing a clinical trial and learning what combinations work best because of that same concern that you have. I oftentimes give my patients 3, 4, 5 different things just for testosterone production. So I have not seen a formula that has all these different components. This is why I'm looking at putting one together and perhaps and seeing if it works. So I'm doing this little mini clinical trial to see if it really works and if it has legs. And I'm looking at it objectively and then for sexual function. So the answer is no. And if one existed that is unrelated to me or unassociated with me, I would say it because I think I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think there is one. I think that a lot of the formulas, particularly the formulas that are available to us or the ones that you've seen on the slide, they just have a lot of different, they throw everything in and just try to put too much in actually and not enough of any one thing. So I think that's the problem. So the quick answer is no, I don't know of one that has all these ingredients.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dr. Espinosa. We really appreciate you being here today and wonderful presentation. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks so much.